tell us when.
National POW MIA Recognition Day was established in 1979 through a proclamation by President Jimmy Carter, who was himself a veteran of the U.S. Navy and a graduate of the Naval Academy. Since then, every subsequent president has issued an annual proclamation commemorating the third Friday in September as National POW MIA Recognition Day. Here at the National D-Day Memorial, we never allow ourselves to forget that during World War II alone, more than 130,000 Americans endured a POW experience. Since World War II, more than 81,000 American personnel have been classified as missing in action. One slogan for National POW MIA Recognition Day is, quote, honoring their sacrifice, earnestly searching for those still missing. To honor all of them, I'd like to share the story of two heroes who have recently been identified and returned home to their native Virginia to lie at rest. Morris Canaday was born here in Bedford County, although in adulthood he lived in Roanoke and later in Washington, D.C. In January of 1942, Canaday enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps to do his part in a war that was then less than 2 months old. Only 8 months after he enlisted, he shipped out for a remote jungle rock that few people had ever heard of, Guadalcanal. On September 24th, PFC Kennedy's unit, the 1st Battalion of the 7th Marine Regiment, was sent out to seize key positions prior to a planned ambush into Guadalcanal's backcountry. A Japanese patrol caught the Marines, and Kennedy was one of the men killed. He and 4 other Marines were buried on a slope designated Hill X while the fight went on, but afterwards, no one could find the remote location of the graves. Enter decades later, the determined researchers of the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, or DPAA. This organization from the Department of Defense was created in 2015 to fulfill, quote, our nation's obligation by maximizing the number of missing personnel accounted for while ensuring timely, accurate information is provided to their families. With cutting-edge technology and sheer resolve, DPAA scours the globe looking for remote burial sites like Hill X. Finding human remains there in 2016, the agency painstakingly analyzed bone fragments, material artifacts, and conducted innovative DNA research. Through this, Private Canaday was identified and returned here to Bedford for burial later this month. He was the first man from Bedford County to fall in combat during World War II, and now finally identified, he will be honored in a cemetery nearby in Forest, Virginia. Rest in peace, Marine. A few years afterwards, Private First Class Robert J. Bobby Wright Jr. in the U.S. Army from Hollybrook, Bland County, Virginia, was sent to defend South Korea in the burgeoning conflict there. On November 30th, 1950, he was declared missing in action, and his family was soon notified. In fact, the young Virginian had become a prisoner of war. In circumstances likely never to be fully known, he died in a POW camp in Korea in March of 1951. After the war, North Korea returned the remains of many POWs who had died in the camps, but the technology did not then exist to identify them all. The unknowns were buried in the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, known as the Punch Bowl in Hawaii. But in 2018, DPAA began the process of exhuming those nameless heroes and trying to match them to known missing through dental and anthropological analysis, mitochondrial DNA, and other evidence. And in this manner, the remains of unknown X14717 were conclusively identified as Bobby Wright. That young hero has also returned home for burial in Bland County, another Virginian returning to his community that never forgot him. PFC Wright, welcome home to a nation that still values your sacrifice. So 2 intrepid sons of Virginia, fighting men lost but never forgotten, are now home with names given to the nameless, but there is much more ground to cover. No other nation has ever cared for its honored dead like the United States has. To my knowledge, no other nation is attempting anything as sweeping as the mission of DPAA. Here at the National D-Day Memorial, there are many names on our wall of the D-Day fallen who are listed as missing in action. Their names also on the wall of the missing in Normandy American Cemetery. We honor them all, and we look forward to the day when the grave marker above them gives their proper name rather than simply known but to God. Calvin Coolidge once said, quote, "A nation which forgets its defenders will itself be forgotten." May none of us ever be said to have forgotten. Thank you. For those of you watching online, please return to our webpage, dday.org, for a special video presentation at 1 o'clock, honoring another prisoner of war and his faithful dog.